Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. We are so excited to have you with us for our very first episode, and we have so much gold that we are going to share with you in this show. My name is Tiffany Toombs Clevinger, and this is my lovely husband, Sid Clevinger.
What's up, everybody?
So it's an interesting dynamic. We've never done a podcast together, mostly because Sid really likes to talk, and I'm really all about just getting to the point and then not talking anymore. So,
or no. In better terms, I'm the extrovert, you're the introvert. That's why.
So we'll see how many random tangents we get led on. But we wanted to
Come on, it's not that bad.
We wanted to create this show because it is our greatest passion to help people heal and break the cycles in their life. And we're going to talk about some extreme cycles with some of our guests, things around abuse and whatnot, but also the other cycles like procrastination or cycles of, money mindset, scarcity mindset, things like that. And so if you are looking to improve your life at all, if you are ready to elevate yourself to that next level, to make the dreams that you see when you close your eyes at night your living reality, then you are absolutely in the right place.
Yeah, I think, initially for me, a big reason why we created this show was there's so many people out there that I think are starving for quote unquote the good life, right? Whatever that good life is for them. I know I was for a long time, and we're going to dive into that on these episodes. But, I think at the end of the day, this show was put together because me and you both see a lot of blocks, like some of the ones you had mentioned: self-doubt, self-sabotage, anxiety, stress, imposter syndrome, and on and on and on and on. And we saw all of these blocks that were preventing people from taking that next step. And whether they believe there's another side or not, you and I are living it. And we're here telling it from the other side after we've broken through the cycle. And we're super excited that this show is going to help others break through the cycle as well.
And I think from a societal perspective, this is the perfect time to be putting out this show because, I think starting back in 2020, there was this massive global awakening where we started to break societal cycles as well. Cycles that told us what success had to look like, what the American dream was, what it meant, what you had to own, or the status you had to have to be worthy or to be good at what you did. And now people are like, what if I don't want 5 cars?
Sure.
What if I, don't want the designer clothes? What if I just want like a chicken coop and more time freedom?
Sounds awesome.
We're all about breaking those cycles as well.
Absolutely. When we first got together, I was about the watches and the cars and the penthouses and living in the middle of the city. And it's crazy now that we live here in East Tennessee, literally backed up right next to the Smoky Mountain National Park on 97 acres, with a massive garden that you're doing. And, looking at, getting chickens from down the, getting eggs from chickens down the street. I mean, a complete 180 of a lifestyle, but you and I have both embraced it. I mean, I love it. I think you love it too.
I mean, I think your mullet is definitely a sign that you
I'm
love
mullet, baby. I love my mullet. Don't you dare.
Had you told me 6 years ago when we met that you would have a mullet one day, I would not have believed you.
Not believed me or not stayed with me? Those are two different
Not
things.
believed you. I mean, my
Okay.
brothers and my dad both rock the mullet, so I don't judge the mullet too hard.
Now, I think it's interesting because, I've known this for a long time. This is in your book, Stop Being a Selfish Bitch. And, I've heard you talk about this on so many stages and stuff like that. But I think what'd be really good for people to hear is the story of you, right? I mean, I know the story of you, but I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that don't. So when it comes to breaking your cycle, and ultimately, like, what is, we look at breaking a cycle as breaking the old, basically breaking away from the past reality because our past reality, because we knew there was something more on the other side of that. Ultimately, like, tell everybody what you've told thousands and thousands of people on stage, because everybody seems to love the story, and I'm sure these listeners will as well.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think it's important to realize with my story that you can look at somebody and see somebody who's really high functioning and not realize what they're going through inside. Because I was a straight A student, I was part of student council, and I worked a job, and I won all of these awards for Spirit of Youth and leadership awards and Leaders of Tomorrow and all of these awards, right? Like we had so many trophies
You are a smarty pants.
and dance medals and things like that that were all over my room. But what people didn't realize is like I was slowly dying inside. And so, I had two very different childhoods. I had one childhood with my mom, my quote unquote stepdad, who, if you hear me refer to dad, that's who I'm talking about. And then my brothers, who are half brothers. And that was full of like, the love and the fun and whatnot. And then there was my other childhood, which was every other weekend between the ages of 3 and about 10, or really from like 6 months, I guess, until 10. But I have memories from 3 until 10, where I was with my biological dad and my stepmom, and I was literally trying to survive. And when he met my stepmom when I was 3 years old. She was a domestic violence survivor. She was living in a women's shelter. And I remember she had like fresh bruises, like they were still like purple when he met her. So she had just escaped like an physically abusive ex. And she had 4 kids. And she was living in the women's shelter. Very quickly, she moved in with my biological dad, but I was a threat to her. And so anytime I was being me, and I'm a natural performer, even though I'm super introverted, I'm a natural performer. I was always dancing and putting on plays, and the spotlight just naturally fell on me. And so when I was there on those weekends, my biological dad doted on me, and I was a very smart cookie. So I learned how to play that card to get every Barbie that I wanted. And so on those weekends, I was a threat to her. She didn't get as much attention. And so it started with her locking me in closets, burning me with curling irons. And then for years, she told me that strangers hated blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. And I don't often tell this aspect of the story, but I think it's also important to share in terms of breaking the cycle of racism, is that she actually told me that Native Americans hated blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
Oh boy.
And would kill them if they saw them.
Oh.
And one day when I was about 7, I was acting up, and she drove me to the outskirts of the city that I was from, to the reservation, and told me she was going to leave me there. And so for a long time, I was deathly afraid of Native American people. And I've obviously come to break that cycle and realize that none of what I was taught as a kid that was true about them was actually true. But I was deathly afraid of Native American people for a very long time. And I would shrink away. I would try and hide. If I saw somebody who was Native American walking up a street, I would cross the road because I thought that I was in danger, because that's what I had been conditioned with. So I was 7 when I first begged for my life. A couple years later, she threatened to kidnap me and that I would never see my family again. Luckily, my stepdad made it there just in time to rescue me. And then I never saw them again because they moved to the other side of Canada and they didn't want to come back. And I just refused. I refused to fly out there and see them. And I didn't realize until my late 20s how these feelings of abandonment, I felt like, even though wanted nothing to do with my biological dad, and this is the really weird part of trauma and breaking the cycle, I wanted nothing to do with him. I did not like him. I did not think he was a good person, but I still felt like he abandoned me. And so I still had these deep abandonment wounds. I still felt like I wasn't good enough because one of the two people who was supposed to unconditionally love me just left my life and chose my abuser. And so, you know, I for my stepdad, I became this overachieving, people-pleasing perfectionist, trying to prove to him that I was good enough for him to love and to be his daughter. And of course, he just always loved me as his own. He never gave me a reason to feel like I needed to do that. But that perpetuated in everything. And
Mhm.
so I was this overachiever because I felt that that was the only way to be loved. And it all kind of came to a head. What forced me to start breaking the cycle and even seeing the cycle was I was living in Australia in my late 20s. I was about 28, 29 years old. And I had been dating my then boyfriend for about 3 years. He had just put an offer in on a block of land. That's how serious we were. He told friends that he was saving for a ring. And he went away to a job interview in Sydney, Australia. Fly in, fly out mining was really big back then. And he said he wanted to get a better job to provide for me. I drove him to the airport, y'all. I drove him to the airport and he actually went to meet his other girlfriend in another state. But I didn't find that out right away. I went home and I found out, I took a test because I hadn't been feeling well, found out I was pregnant. And then within hours, I found out that he was actually with another woman in another state, and my entire life collapsed.
Mhm.
Turns out he was a compulsive liar, who the kind of person who would be like, yeah, I had bacon and eggs for breakfast when they hadn't even had breakfast.
Mhm.
And um and then I ended up miscarrying the baby. And it brought me to such a depth of pain that I had not felt before. And there was one Friday afternoon, I was attempting to just paste on a smile. I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant, so I hadn't told anybody about the miscarriage. I didn't tell anybody for 6 months. Not my family, not my best friend,
Dang.
nobody. And so I went through that completely alone, just with my dog. And I remember one Friday afternoon, I was in downtown Melbourne, a city of like 5 million people. And I had just finished a business meeting, and all of these people are around me laughing and joking and talking about their plans for the weekend and the future. And I was like, I don't even see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I was standing on the corner and I saw this taxi coming, and I thought, if I just take one well-timed step, my pain goes away. I don't look selfish, but my pain goes away. It'll look like an accident. And so mentally I committed, but when I went to take that step, my feet were rooted to the ground. And in that moment, I realized as the taxi drove by what I had almost just done. And I knew I needed to start healing. And so that's what started my healing journey.
Yeah, and then and I'm so glad you did, as your husband now. It's kind of full circle in that story because I mean I know you know this, but obviously the listeners probably don't know this. I got a good piece of me that is Native American, and Cherokee Indian. So I guess that goes around full circle there, because I definitely love you. So there's nothing there.
And
Yeah.
there, I mean, my sister-in-law is, half Native American. I have friends who are Native American. I'm very interested and intrigued by Native American culture now. So it definitely was a piece that I had to heal. But I
Sure.
think if we're going to talk about truly breaking cycles, we also have to realize that none of us are born. Nobody comes into this world racist or with any judgments about any other culture, religion, color, any of the human labels that we put on each other. We come into this world as love, and then we learn you shouldn't love that person because of this, and you shouldn't love that person because of this.
It's crazy that you say that because like having little man, like for those of you that don't know, we have a child. He's pushing 2 at the filming of this episode. And every time you bring up stuff around like how kids are born without these, blocks or without the BS that the world, fills us all up with throughout every day, and then it's like I look at him or like, how he runs, he puts his arms out, and just runs at full speed, whatever. It's just kind of like he's just not afraid of anything, and it was interesting because I remember you used to always tell me, and it was little child in all of us, when I was going through my cycle breaking journey, and you know all about that. And, like I would sit there and I'd be like, there's no little kid in me, like I'm just mad. I'm mad all the time, I'm angry. But it's interesting because like as I've kind of worked through it, and as I know you've seen recently, I go outside and it's just sort of like, wow, like I do see the little kid. I do feel the little kid, and it's the same emotions and the same feelings. And I think that was part of really where, like I started realizing that I'd made it, like, like I'm here. And subconsciously you would hear it, I would hear voices and I would just be like, it's over. You've made it through, and I would hear that. And, it was very real for me. And that was really when I knew that, I broke the cycle, like it was over and I'd made it through, and all the stuff that I'd went through was over.
Yeah. So when I met you, you were in the middle of acting out a lot of trauma. So I've had a front row journey to your cycle
Front
breaking
row. Was it that
society.
bad though? Was it really that bad?
I mean, I'm still here, so
Good point. I'm still here too. So yeah, I mean, for those of you, mine, it's crazy, me and Tiff always, when we're out with friends or, we're at, traveling, doing whatever, and we're talking to people and people are asking us questions. It's crazy how much our stories align. And around the same time, this was going on for you, what, like 2017, right? Like 2016, 2017, right?
no, mine was 2017 is when I then moved back to Canada.
Okay.
But 2000, the miscarriage and everything, the first time I lost everything was 2013. And then I lost it all again in 2017, being in business with the wrong people.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So, what a lot of people don't realize, and I was married before. So I know what Tiffany was. I was actually married before. I had moved to Florida. And it was interesting because when I grew up in a very, I think sheltered is the best word. Some people can probably relate to that. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, and that has nothing to do with being sheltered. But I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, which is a big reason we're here now because I loved it here. This is very similar to where you grew up, in Calgary and Banff, and then Smoky Mountains is very similar to that. So obviously, I think that's why soulfully we're here. But I grew up just in a very sheltered life, and my parents and my family were not big on emotion. I didn't grow up with emotion. I grew up with very much, if you get emotional, you stuff it down and you keep it stuffed down, and it's magically going to go away. And it never really did for me. I never really understood that as even a young child. But like some of the big memories that I would have would be around, remember us, kids fighting. My two sisters, we'd always fight. I'm the middle child, so I was always wrong. But we would always fight. And then I remember the only way that my parents would ever get us to stop fighting would like basically put us in a room together, make us say we're going to love each other, hunky dory, big family hug. Okay, we're never going to talk about this again. And for me, that just stacked up a lot of childhood trauma, that I really didn't know I was stacking up. Now it obviously just wasn't with my sisters; it was with my mom and my dad. But what's interesting is I think a lot of people have always asked us, how'd you all end up in the Smoky Mountains? Well, it's an interesting story. And for me, it was really the pinnacle of how I had to break through. It was face it or not face it. Like to a point, and you saw this, to a point where I was so crippled in anxiety that I couldn't function. I was telling you, Tiffany, I don't want to go outside today. Tiffany, I don't want little man. I don't want us to go anywhere. Can we just stay here? I'm just really worried little man's going to get hurt. Like, and to a point to where I wanted to stop living. And for, those of you, I won't get into the gory details, but we went through major, major betrayal. When we moved here, we used to live in Dallas, Texas. You and I had two separate businesses at the time. We got pregnant, what, 2.5, however long ago, I can't add that well, I guess, but about 3 years ago, we got pregnant. And, we found out we were pregnant and everything just kind of went, and you and I really didn't slow down until later in the pregnancy. And then all of a sudden, my family, because your family's up in Canada, my family who lives in Kentucky was like, hey, like everybody, my two sisters, my parents, they're all like, we want you to move closer to home. We want you to move closer to home. We want you to move closer to home. We want little man, his name's Chad. We want Chad to be able to, your son Chad to be able to have cousin time and to spend time with his family. And, it just seemed like it was getting so overwhelming how much we were hearing that. And then finally, obviously with 2020 going on and there was just so much stress around us, we were finally like, well, maybe it would just be a little bit easier if we moved home. And we finally gave, and we finally were like, okay, let's move home. So we moved home. But to move home, right, there was going to be a transitional period. You and I both wanted land. You and I both wanted a house. So we decided, hey, you know, like if we're going to move home, we're going to do it on our terms. And our terms was that we're going to move to Tennessee, somewhere in Tennessee. We're going to be near the Smoky Mountains. We didn't know we were literally going to back up next to it, but you know, we wanted to be near the Smoky Mountains. And at the time, we were looking like an hour, hour and a half north. We were looking northeast Knoxville. For those of you that, you know, we're about an hour south of Knoxville now. And you know, like we knew that was kind of what we wanted, and we tried so hard to get there. Obviously, I know God and our Creator had a different story for us, which is why we're here now. But we get there, and the whole thing is we did not have the quote unquote credit score to be able to get a construction loan. Like that was what it was. We had everything else that we needed. We had the money. We had, you know, the idea. We had the build of what we wanted to build. We knew we wanted to go off grid. We had a builder. Like we had everything there lined up. And then the whole thing is we're going to move back to Kentucky. So I guess that was in end of 2022. We moved back to Kentucky and we're like, hey, you know, like we were told, we told them like, listen, like here's the situation before we leave Texas. And my parents came to us on multiple occasions, but my parents came to us and said, listen, we want you to move close to home so badly that we're willing to help you with the credit. And then so you and I, when we heard that, we were like, okay, that's our sign. Let's go. So we knew we were going to have a transitional period. Moved back to Kentucky. When we moved back to Kentucky, red flags started to emerge like almost immediately. I know you remember them. And we get back, and I'll never forget, we get back, and it was right before Halloween, like a day or two before Halloween. And we get back, and we go do Halloween with my sister, and everybody's all happy we're home. And I'm still feeling like a little wonky. I'm like, this is weird. I'm in Kentucky. This isn't Texas. This is a very small town, not a big city. Okay, weird energy. And anyway, so like we're getting all that stuff set up. And I remember like I'm already like putting the plans together. We wanted to build, you know, an A-frame. We were going to move to this part. You and I already had like properties that we were going to go look at. We already had a budget. Like, you know, I'm already having our builder start to design the house. Like all of that stuff was already in motion. And I remember going to my parents and I was being like, all right, so we need to put a plan together. And they looked at me and they said, well, it's the holiday season, you know. Nobody's really doing anything like that right now. How about we just wait till the beginning of the year? And that was my first red flag. I remember just being like, no, like I'm not staying here for more than 6 months. Like I'm 34 years old. I'm not staying at my parents. I got a kid. Like, no, I'm a man, you know, like I'm gonna, you know, get my own place. And that's why we moved here. And then as you know, the string of lies just kept happening over and over and over and over again. We went on for 4 months. You know, I mean, I think at one point they were like, hey, well, we're not going to help you anymore until you get the down payment, which me and you had found out was 30 grand. So we were like, okay, well, I've already stopped my business to do this. You practically stopped your business. And we were like, okay, let's go out and speak on stage. We literally got a stage gig and traveled, and we made 30 grand, right, on the stage gig. And we came back and we were like, okay, here you go. And I think they were so in awe. I honestly think they didn't think we could do it. We did it, right? Because we had done it before. And we got back and, you know, we had that ready to go. 4 months went, you know, so we played that game. And then all of a sudden, you know, we found out the truth. And what had happened was my parents had betrayed us and stabbed us in the back a little bit and, you know, cost us a lot of money in the process. Some of you might have went through that. And basically, you know, found out that they had invested in an Airbnb project with my two sisters. And you know, it actually came to you and we're like, hey, we need help with printing out the bank loan stuff, or, you know, the bank statements and all the stuff they need for the loan. After 4 months of telling us they couldn't do it, and then we confronted them about that, they got so upset about it that they kicked us out of the house, and you and I were homeless for about a week. That was interesting with the 8-month-old, and even more interesting, you know. And I think for me, that was the pain, at least the initial pain that I needed to realize, like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this. Like, there's a better side. There's a better way. There's a better life out there for me. I feel it internally. I know it's there, and I gotta go find it. I have to go find it. I don't know where it's at. I don't know what it is, but I have to go. And I think like that was my initial, like, okay, let's do this. And, you know, to kind of wrap that story up, you know, we came back, we went and spoke at another thing right when we came back. And then ironically, manifested where we're at now, you know, 97 acres, right on the edge of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I'm literally looking at it right outside this window. You know, I think, I hate to use this term, but I think, everything happens for a reason, in the sense that our creator and that God, had another vision for us. And, it sucks that we had to go through what we went through. But at the end of the day, if I didn't go over this past year of everything that I've been through to break the cycle, there's absolutely no way. I don't think I had to kind of lose a little bit at the beginning so that I could build the foundations that I needed to go that much faster to get what I wanted, and then ultimately just surpass where I ever could have went before, and just never look back. And I think, like, for me, like, I'm so happy where we're at right now, and I'm so happy in the life that we've created, and what we're doing, that, it sucked what I went through, but at the end of the day, knowing that there was more, making the decision to go get more, and then just doing the daily things, 1% better every day, judging myself based on my accomplishments, not someone else's accomplishment, what I did yesterday instead of someone else's accomplishments today. All of those little things, just really helped me. And I can tell you now, as a cycle breaker, I've never been more happy. I'm living the dream life right now, and I get to live it with you, and I get to live it with little man, and there's absolutely nothing else that I would want.
I think one thing that you touched on there that stops a lot of people from breaking the cycle as we come to the end of this episode is that it's not always easy. And there is an element of letting go, and there is an element of grieving, which you did a lot of last year, in letting go of the relationships that you let
Man,
go
those
of.
breathing, those exercises you gave me, they did the trick. They did the trick.
For everybody who's wondering what those exercises are, you can get them in our 7-day nervous system reset, which we've created for people to start their cycle breaker journey. So all you have to go do is go to resetmysystem.com/reset.
We'll have a link down here below for you.
The link will be in the show notes and in the description on YouTube. So go get it. It's absolutely free. Our gift to you for being here with us. And that's the end of
best part, you can do them in under 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, which is less than 1% of your day, but they're going to make a massive impact. So if you need a little bit of courage, a little bit of something to help you overcome that fear and that grief, then that's what the nervous system reset is for.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I think a lot of you that are listening to this, you've heard our stories. You're probably, if you're in a story like that as well, we want to let you know there is another side to this. There is a happiness and a joy and a freedom that you can get to. And both Tiffany and I had to go through it, and we got through it, and we know you can get through it too.
We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Cycle Breakers. This channel is dedicated to giving you the tools that you need to clear out the blocks holding you back so you can live the life that you desire. Now, before you go, as our special gift to you, we have our 7-day nervous system reset. These are the exact exercises that I give all of our clients in every single one of our programs to help them regulate their nervous system, to make that inner work and clearing out those mental blocks so much easier. The best part, it's absolutely free. Just click on the link in the description below and you'll get instant access.